and present tools situationally based on what they're trying to accomplish and in turn what we want to accomplish. I think one of the tools that's made the customers think the most is this deck that was created by the MS brand team called MS is Different, or the Payer brand team. And that kind of paints a picture on the category of MS and why it's very, very difficult to manage, and how even negative formulary changes tend to not move share away from products that physicians and patients want access to. I think that deck causes people to truly look at their utilization of the category, and seems to have really resonated with the customers. I think the MS Visualizer has the opportunity to do that as well, and we've seen customers take that resource and begin to play with it and try and understand what the category looks like for them. So those are, I would guess, the two that I've seen most successfully utilized.
Do you have resources that are targeted for different stakeholders? For whether it be
I would say not.
Okay. Would it be helpful to have those?
Yes, of course. I think for a medical director versus a pharmacy director, they're going to have very different success metrics. And so, sometimes I think at other organizations where we've had more resources and better targeted resources, they are developed exactly how you just explained it. So, thinking in mind, what does a medical director really care about, and what are their goals versus a pharmacy director? A pharmacy director may be just trying to reduce ingredient cost of treating a disease, where a medical director might care more about the impact of the disease on the system as a whole, and what the cost might be in an inpatient or outpatient setting. And so they definitely have a different lens they're looking through. And at Biogen, we seem to just have the resources, just one resource, no matter your role. It's up to the account team to kind of figure out how to position it to meet the needs of that customer. But I think we could definitely do a better job of, even if it's the same resource, but the first or second slide explaining why the resource matters per that role might be an improvement.
Okay. And when you think about pull-through, so are you responsible for basically leading like the pull-through for your region?
Yes.
Okay. Is it a formal process? Is there kind of an alignment across the company around how pull-through is to be?
I don't think so. I think that's something that is a company priority for the beginning of next year. But no, it hasn't been. I think what I've witnessed, at least to date, is, as an example, is, in the 2018 plan year, we had some access wins on national plans, and a national account manager might send out, kind of an idea of where that business lies. And then it's up to the regional team to kind of try and get the sales team's attention to understand the impact of the access change. What I haven't seen is any coordination across the leadership to make that regional sales group try and really care and understand the access win. So their leaders talking about it as a company, having an exit share that we all understand and know is the target in a certain amount of time to capture, to make the investment in that access a net positive. So I think those kind of things are not widely communicated, and as such, it tends to kind of die out after the regional account teams. We can only do so much to communicate it and help them understand why it matters. So it doesn't seem to be great alignment from market access to sales on pull-through. It seems like, though, our new sales leader, that is her focus going into 2019. I've heard that, and it seems like we're seeing some calls set up by their organization for everyone to get better focused on pull-through, and that's exciting.
Okay. So there'll probably be more formal processes established, because my next question was going to be if there's a feedback loop for best practices or sharing, but it seems like that's something that might be developed with the upcoming
Sure.
plan.
Yep, I think so as well.
When you think about the value story, so what is your impression of the current value proposition for your therapeutic areas that you're presenting to your stakeholders?
You know what? We've been working on a value prop deck, and it's getting better and better. But I think initially it was very, very weak. It was focused on Biogen as a corporation rather than market access as a group and as a resource. And so the old value prop deck, really just took snippets from our annual report or our shareholder report, kind of talking about as a corporation, what does Biogen look like? How many employees worldwide? What are we doing? What things like that. And to be honest, at the local level, at a small regional player, they could care less about that. That's not going to do anything for them. And so we really need to refocus that through the lens of what does MANR do and how does that bring value to a customer. And so, I don't know that that's even finally through the approval stage yet, but that's kind of where we're trying to refocus that deck and resource. So we can say, here's who we are, here's who the portfolio is, here's how we've partnered with other like customers in the past, here's an example of a resource, and then finishing the presentation with, here's a couple of questions that we think are important. Which one would you like to learn more about? So it's kind of open-ended as well. So it leads on to a next interaction or a next discussion. I think to date, none of our resources are very open-ended. They're kind of just one and done, nothing's connected. It's a transactional resource. And I think we're trying to steer the teams away from that and make things more consultative, more open-ended. So there's continued discussion and kind of a string of discussions that lead to a valued partnership.
And are quality measures incorporated into the new deck that's being developed?
They're referenced, but truly they're so far away that it's going to be difficult to use that as a collaboration piece at this time. I think from a Medicare standpoint, there's conversation that they'll be a part of the next iteration of quality metrics, and on the commercial side, they're just not being thought about yet. Or it's not far enough along to really grab a customer themselves.
Okay. And what types of tools or analytics or reporting are provided to you?
We have access to a hub where we can go in and pull data, but very little is provided to us in that regard. So we don't. In fact, we don't even get copied on sales reports or sales trends. So we don't know. I don't know how my regional partners are doing at any given state and time compared to their peers. And so it's hard to understand if we're a resource for them to do a better job pulling through. Probably we need a line of sight into how they're performing against their peers as well.
And what about competitive information? So where, particularly in MS, where, the access barriers might be different among competitors. Like how is that communicated to you, or do you have a tool that you can go in and pull that type of info?
So there's a tool that exists that we can go in and see the access landscape in certain geographic markets. There's a tool that we can see the access at a given plan. And then there's tools to see how we're performing in an environment. But nothing is kind of sent to us. It's all things that we have to pull out ourselves.
All self-serve, okay. Is there anything like data elements that are missing, or any types of data that you wish you had access to that you currently don't?
We've talked about with our leadership about if you have a direct contract, there is no true data being fed to you about the performance of that contract. So I think to be a better steward of our access investments, we're searching for a way to talk about that contract and contract performance between the signatures. And so, we've asked for and we've thought about, kind of a contract performance deck. If there's anything that can be sent to us that can be derived from the customer's rebate or invoices that they're sending, that maybe can be put together internally so we can go present that to the customer and look for better pull-through opportunities through those conversations. So sometimes, if we're not looking hard, we may not even know how we're performing on a contract that we're supposed to be managing. So that's a report I think I'd love to see, and hopefully we can begin to generate internally as just contract performance.
Okay. And switching gears a little bit to think about training, what's your perception of training for account teams within Biogen? Is it sufficient on, value story proposition, available resources, competitors? What is done well, and where are some areas where it could be improved? Particularly, you're a very good person to ask this, being relatively new to the organization.
Yeah, I think Biogen probably has the worst training I've ever seen. Having been with a couple of bigger companies, and having been an account manager now for 11 years or so, I think Biogen does a decent job of training people on disease state, and that was probably what I needed, disease state and product. So coming in, I kind of have my own ideas about how to be an account manager. And so that part isn't as foreign to me as maybe the disease. So coming in, I felt well versed in disease management and the brands that we're supposed to cover. But where I think we dropped the ball is helping people understand how to work better with their customers and use the resources that they're creating for us. And I'll give you just one example. I mentioned before that I'm on a small group team that we work with the MS franchise. It's called the franchise team, and so we're working with the payer brand marketers to kind of create better resources for the MS franchises. And we spent a lot of time before the POA kind of working on a piece to better, it was kind of the value prop type piece. So we could have something to put in front of a customer and kind of tell who we are, why they should work with us, and then present them with some ideas on what our next meetings could be focused on. And we worked on that for months and months, and it finally got through legal right maybe a month before the POA meeting. And there was never even an announcement sent to the field about this new piece or how to use it. There was no discussion about how we should even introduce it to our local teams. It's just kind of sitting there. It's dead almost, and I don't know if they imagine it's up to us as the people who help them create it, that now we're supposed to train people how to use it. Mm-hmm. But I think that's just kind of the missing element, is there's very little thought put into now how do we help the individual contributors understand how to use this resource and with whom should it be utilized. Mm-hmm. And so I just see that as something that we're not really doing very well right now compared to a bigger pharma organization who would create a piece, tell you exactly who it could be used with, based on their role, how it might be used, and then they might even solicit feedback back from us on how it's going so far. And I think that's just kind of a general failing of Biogen to date that I've noticed. I think I have on my team in the West maybe one or two people who are new to this role, came up through the sales team and became account managers. And I've asked them what their perception is on training in this role. And they said it's awful. They different than I, had all the experience with the products and understood the products and the disease, but they have no clue how to be an account manager, and they're just learning as they go. There seems to be no at Pfizer, for example, we had or I'm sorry, Novo Nordisk, there was like the Novo Nordisk way of account management. And they had a method and a system, and they wanted you to learn and understand and become competent on, where Biogen has no such thing. It seems like there's just nothing there. It's just paper, maybe at best, about their theories of and the way of doing account management. Mm-hmm. Other things that they're not very forthcoming about are contracting. What is a good contract look like for one of the brands? What is the sandbox? What are the barriers and guardrails? What is the upper limit? What is the lower limit? Mm-hmm. What is the average? These are certain things that other organizations are very clear about. And they will say, here's our contracting strategy. This is kind of the upper limit. Anything beyond this number, it goes to a second level review. If we're doing a good job, we're kind of hitting in this area of numbers with our customers, especially our regional accounts. There's so little transparency around our contracting strategy that it's I feel like we're always wasting time just kind of guessing what's appropriate rather than knowing what the range is and then being a good steward of the company and starting low and eventually kind of making a true negotiation out of it and ending up at a spot that still was a win for Biogen. Right. And we just have so little knowledge of that information that I feel like we're always at a disadvantage during internal negotiations. And then we don't even know if we did a good job in an external negotiation because we don't know or privy to what the range is, the range for success. So yeah, I'd say we're terrible at training. We really don't do a great job of people empowerment when it comes to contracting negotiations. Those are the kind of things where we have to do better.
What about sharing like best practices, kind of a little bit about what you were talking about? Do you have forums to share best practices or where you can share with some of your peers? And if so, how is that done?
I think the main way it's done right now is through a regional team call. So both the East and the West region has a team call on a weekly basis. And during those calls, best practices can and are often shared and recognized at a regional level. But beyond that, I don't know that anything is done.
Brandon, those are all the questions that I have. Is there anything that you would like to bring up based off of the topics that we've discussed or anything that I haven't asked that you would like to make us aware of?
No, I think we've covered it. I appreciate the opportunity to share some things.
Okay, great. Well, we really appreciate your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, you too. Take care.